Good morning. I'm Dr. Praful Ranjan from IIMT B School, welcoming you all on the second day of our FDP program on change management in education sector. Yesterday, we had our distinguished guest, Mr. H.H. Pereira. He discussed about a lot of changes, a lot of new things, and we had a question and answer session with him also. Today, we have got a new set of guests with us. They'll be talking something new, something interesting about the change management in education sector. So today we have two panelists with us. First is Father Dr. Benny Jose Paletti, and we have Miss Lavina Joy. These two will be taking us through to the session today. And of course, we have with us our Honorable Director, Mr. Saju K. James. He will be introducing our panelists and we will take it forward. So I welcome you all the participants and all the panelists today. And I request our Director Sahab to introduce the panelists for the day. Over to you, Director Sahab.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ranjan. Welcome you all to the second day of the faculty development program on the topic change management in education sector. Today we have two eminent scholars. Father Dr. Benny Jose Paletti is with us. He is the director of educational institutions of the Delhi Faridabad Syro-Malabar Diocese. He has just completed his PhD program, of course, awarded from Jamia Millia Islamia, a central university in Delhi, on the topic analyzing interactions in a social science classroom at elementary level under the supervision of Professor Farah Faruqi. He is a doctoral fellow of ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Research, and he got 3 master's degree, one in MA Education, MA Economics, MA Sociology. Welcome you further to this FDP program. And he is talking on the topic, the revamp education for stakeholders. This unparalleled time forced everyone to think and act. In the educational scenario, the thinking, planning, and action should focus on the core issues and the stakeholders. It is the participants that make the education effective. The revamping has to start not from discussion rooms and drawing rooms, but from classroom. There are various effective models for the same. So Father will discuss on this topic. But before proceeding with his session, let me introduce Ms. Lavina Joy, the young and energetic research scholar. She is representing the young generation. I think for us, even for the directors, deans, professors, assistant professors, everybody has to learn something from the new gen. What is in their mind? What are their expectations? What they are expecting from the education sector? Ms. Lavina Joy has just passed out her master's degree in education in June 2020 with a distinction from the School of Education Studies, Ambedkar University, Delhi. Her alma mater is St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, from where she took her honors degree in history with first division. She had her CBSE senior secondary education with a distinction from Carmel Convent School, Diplomatic Enclave in New Delhi. Lavina with her equal interest in curricular and extracurricular activities, is preparing to pursue her PhD. And today, Lavina is going to discuss on the topic implications for educational leaders, practitioners, in the light of our advancement towards new managerialism. Welcome, Lavina Joy, to this program. And may I request you to kindly proceed with your session.
Thank you, sir. And I thank IIMT for giving me this opportunity to participate in the faculty development program. It is definitely an honor considering that, I just passed out, but as Dr. Kanantara just said, like, it is very important for even the faculty to know what the learners are expecting. So I would be sharing my screen just to guide you with what I wish to present. Can someone tell me if they can see the screen?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah. Just 1 second. Yeah. So as Professor already has mentioned before, I will be speaking on the implications for an educational leader, practitioner, either way, in the light of change, but specifically in the light of new managerialism. I think so. The perspective that I'm going to put across is going to be that of a student, a learner. And so the reason why I think the implications of a leader are necessary are because when a reform comes, when a change comes, there are often guidelines from top. But somehow it is always missed. Somehow nobody asks for any feedback, guidelines, or anything from the bottom. This is considering that the hierarchy goes from bureaucracy to students, top to bottom approach. So I think a perspective of students, perspective of learners is very important about how educational leaders or educational practitioners can go about their duties as teachers and faculty. So my vantage point for presenting this comes from two areas. First, of course, is being a student of education and having been with so many faculty, like being taught by so many faculty, these issues have shaped my understanding. And the second, by the training that I have received in the last year of my master's in the course called Educational Organization and Leadership. So when we start, the first question before we go ahead could be, why even engage with the idea of educational leadership? Like, what is it? Like, what is different between leadership and educational leadership? So I will be addressing a set of these similar familiar questions. So I want to start with what one thinks of a leader. How is a leader identified? A leader can be set apart from the characteristics of that said person, the nature of relation the leader holds with his followers or his students, the orientation of the leader, what they envision, like what is the mission and vision of a leader. So summing all this up, what makes a leader distinct from the crowd, or what makes a faculty distinct from the students, or any connotation you want to take, is the power and authority a leader has. So, since a leader, as we always hear in popular culture and otherwise, with great
Ravina, you
power
are not
comes.
audible.
1 second. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, audible now.
Yeah, audible? Okay.
Proceed. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's lagging for some reason. Okay. So as I was saying that, so why do we need a leader? So what makes a leader distinct is the power that the person has. And as we hear in popular culture, media, and otherwise also in leadership discourses, with great
I
power
can't
comes
hear you,
great.
Ravina.
Okay, 1 second. Hello?
Uh, Ranjan sir, it is audible. We can hear. Kindly proceed, Lavina.
Okay. 1 second. So yeah, as I was saying, with great power comes great responsibility. So being an educational leader is also a responsibility to be with the learners and to know what the learners want. So as a very famous professor named Sunil Batra, who writes a lot on educational leadership and discourses, what he understands leadership as is it aims at developing experiences related to leading education institutions, people, systems, and support. So now, like, what the question is, what makes leadership worth understanding? And educational leaders, they ought to be a people who believe in the impact of teachers in motivating, nurturing, resolving tensions, and enabling way. Why education? Why attribute it to teachers? Why call them leaders like we do in other disciplines? So I think a very important thing that we always miss in leadership with respect to education is that we miss it to link it with learners and learning. Like if the topic of discussion, which is new managerialism, I would just like to, so for 2 minutes, just brief you on the different models of educational leadership, as according to Bush 2008. So you have managerial leadership, which is the most traditional way of leadership, where the concentration is just on keeping things on track. Like there's no innovation. Like there is a memo, there is a guideline, and the leader ensures that things go according to plan. Then you have transformational leadership, which goes a step beyond managerial leadership. In transformational leadership, the leader ensures that there's a transformation in the organization. You have participative leadership, which is more inclusive in nature, where participative leadership ensures that there is collaboration between the leader and those being led. Interpersonal leadership is also very similar to participative leadership, but has an aspect of emotional quotient in it, where the leader develops interpersonal relationships with his or her followers to understand and mitigate change. You have transactional leadership, which is what I mean, a lot of popular culture says is what how we define relationships today. Like transactional in the sense that, let's just say there's a chancellor or there's a principal, and you have your faculty or you have your students. It's transaction. Like if the faculty does well, it looks good on the principal or the chancellor. And if the chancellor is good with it looks good on the chancellor, and in return the faculty gets incentives. So it's like it's transactional, like you do something, I do something for you, you rub my back, I rub yours, sort of a discourse. Then you have postmodern leadership model, which is the recognition of the fact that there are multiple truths. Like there is no one truth. You have moral leadership, which is again a bit traditional in the sense that it requires the leader to be morally upright, and the same goes for the faculty. Like the leadership is mitigated through a set of ethics or values and about what is right. Then you have instructional leadership, which is more prevalent in the discourses of school education, but definitely it can also be understood in the context of higher education. Instructional leadership concentrates on teaching and learning. Like the leadership is primarily to enhance the learning of the students. So, an example I can give you is a lot of countries or a lot of education systems where newly inducted teachers are under the supervision of senior teachers, or they're mentored by senior teachers throughout the course of their initial years. And then the last one is contingent leadership, which is an amalgamation of all this. So just like the word contingent means, contingent leadership means that a leader, he or she does not stick to just one leadership, as I have mentioned. Contingency means to change as per the demand. So when a leader needs to be transformational, he does that. Or when she wants to be when she wants to put an instructional perspective into mind, she does that. So this requires the leader to have the insight and wisdom to know what leadership is to be used when. So this is the most flexible leadership out of all. As I have written in the end, the fact that one size fits all does not work in here, because there are multiple linkages one could trace. Because see, each of these leaderships have some limitations or lacuna, so which is filled by another one. So yeah, like we, so as you know, faculty and leaders of the 21st century in higher education or in schools or any education institutions, like we cannot be moving forward with a book about how to lead. You have to be contingent, you have to be quick, you have to be flexible, because with each passing year, with each let's just say each 3 years, there's a new batch of students that come in. So the dynamic a faculty has with one set of students or one batch of students will never be the same with the next batch, because as it is a batch of students, it has so many people, and then each of them have different preferences, different understandings, different social contexts. So it is very important for us as leaders to be contingent, to know all these discourses, absolutely, but also have the insight and wisdom to know when to use which. So now I shift to the topic of my discussion, which was around new public managerialism. So, slightly, I'll give you a definition, not a definition, but what new managerialism is. It is a very new phenomena. Well, not a very new, but a recent phenomena in the discourse of education. It has always been there in management discourses, as the professors sitting in the panel would know better than me. But so I would like to call it NPM from now on for ease in communication. So NPM has also come into the discourse of education, not just education, but all public systems. So the primary vision behind it is to move from the traditional classic bureaucratic ways in public organizations to a more flexible way, to fill the inadequacies, to fill the inefficiencies of what the classic bureaucratic organizations could not achieve. So there's a shift from, a more traditional approach, let's just say like a leader and a follower, to a more flexible, more personal approach, where the objectives are set very clearly. And the most important part of NPM, as in any managerial discourse, is that there's a measure for achievement. Like let's just say I go to an institution, and under this new NPM, like there'll always be a discourse around how much I have done in a day, or how much have I done in a week. A very popular discourse this way is how colleges with faculty, they have teaching hours or teaching credits they have to fill. So the achievement is unlocked when a certain credits are unlocked, like this a certain credits are reached. So your achievement is measured, it's governed on the basis of numbers. So that is a new phenomenon in education, where the language of the pedagogical purposes are slowly sinking into the language of the market, because that is the way the current world relations work. So NPM works on three virtuous E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. So, so you read any policy, educational policy in that matter, any guidelines that come, the words are displayed on the screen: best, outstanding, international standard, efficient, accountable, standard based reform. Like these are repetitive terms that you will find in all documents, say post 2010, 12, and it continues to be. So these are the vocabulary that you see in government organization guidelines now, because these also sit very well with international contributors. Like these are the things that everybody wants now. So um so so lightly, the objectives of work take over the nature of work. So there's a constant improvement of self. Like today I complete 8 hours of teaching, so let's just say if I get promoted, I need to complete 12. So it's a constant changing of self. Like you are not supposed to be one person, you're supposed to continuously change as times change, and as the responsibilities and expectations from you change. So, one may ask, like, would one like it? Would one like this surveillance? Would one like to be always measured with numbers? Well, we'll never know, because at one point, people say this ensures efficiency. At the other point, there is also a debate around saying that this is asking too much from us. It is not letting us be. It like we are all becoming one. We are all becoming robotic. It's homogenizing a pool of people. So there are two ways to look at it, because I mean, the against argument is that these things do not see the social context, and they don't look at how applicable these are. Like, the guidelines just come, and they, without knowing the institutional dynamic, the people and everything. But regardless of what these personal narratives are, the fact is that this is the new trend and this is not going anywhere. So it is, so we might as well make peace with it, and we move forward with it, and we make sure that we do our best we can in a discourse which is heavily inducted by the market language. So one of the things with educational leaders or practitioners is that, see, the fact that the one who votes policies into law, who are the legislators, are not the ones who assume the responsibility. It is the biggest challenge, which is, I mean, if you think about it, all of you are faculty. I think even you may face it. Like, an order comes and then you just don't know how to do it. Like, so the real crux is the leader's ability to conceptualize an idea into a coherent vision, and the capacity to motivate the teachers and the staff to realize it. So what is the generic approach? Let's just say an order comes or a guideline comes, any official document. See, the problem is that it tells you very efficient ways of implementing change or reform. Like, it tells you what to do, how to do, but it doesn't tell you how to make your followership, or how to make your learners, or how to make your, the pool of faculty you head, to internalize it. So this is where the role of a leader becomes important, right? Because the guidelines come, it is the duty of the learner to make his followers or his students or whoever is under the learner to internalize the vision. And if the people do not like the vision, it is the duty of the learner to tweak it in a way that everybody believes in. It's a shared value. It's not a one person job that I do this and we achieve this. Like, an organization can never move forward with just one person. Of course, a one person should always take the lead, but it is, an organization can only bear fruits when everybody in the organization pays equal attention, equal heed, and gives in the equal best to do it. So, the next question goes, so what does a good leader do? So a good leader, like, they promote different approaches. So let's just say, if you have to move from A to B, the guidelines say you go like this, but the leader should always devise ways to look at different approaches, an approach which is suitable to their local context. Say a national order comes, it goes to all states. So what works in, say, Delhi will not be what works in Hyderabad or Kerala or Maharashtra, for that matter, because the social contexts are different, the people working are different. So the duty of the leader is to, tweak things in a way that best suits his followership. So other than that, then we can also ask, like, are we, so in this way, are we evading the question of reform or change? Like, absolutely not, because with that kind of an attitude we go nowhere. Like, so we should base our understanding on the thought that things need to be unsettled to move ahead. Like, if things are really perfect in one place, first of all, your idea of perfect may not match with mine. So we can, I think it's safe for us to say that things can never be perfect. But it's only when things are unsettled that we move ahead and we make big breakthroughs. So we need change. Like, it will be very futile to think that we don't need change. But we should also see that change is dealt with a plethora of emotions, especially big change, like, big reforms. Like, everybody has so many emotions about change. And I mean, I don't think everybody would is always comfortable with change, because it means getting out of your comfort zone. So, and during the process of change, the emotions always intensify. So it is when these emotions intensify that good leadership becomes crucial. Like, a leader should be able to cope with the emotions of people when change happens. And the most importantly, it is important to be conscious about how we navigate through change. Uh, so, there are a few 5 things I have written about. There should be formulation of valuable patterns worth returning, devising an institutional culture which is aligned with creating and bringing fundamental change rather than keeping things on track. Like, that is the main idea of manager. Like, somebody asks, what do you mean by managing? The first thought that comes into your mind is managing means, just managing things. Like, things are a certain way and we manage them. But no, like, that management discourse has changed. Now management means much more than that. Bearing attention to the members' apprehensions, dilemmas, strengths, autonomy, while being conscious of the fact that the best version of autonomy is connectedness. Like, it is a bit ironical, like linguistically, but it is what it is. Like, the best version of autonomy, like, you can have your autonomy, you can have your individuality, but you need to be connected. Like, if you're just detached from everything, doing things your own way, may it be, faculty, or may it be a leader, it can never bear fruits. You need to be connected. The systems need to be connected for all of your autonomy to be realized. And lastly, enduring a shared depth of understanding by the nature of work. Like, I think one lesson that, I have learned as a student for over, a lot of years is that, like, the objective of the work can be achieve A, B, C, D, whatever. But if we just concentrate on that, it's a very peripheral approach. We need to be united as faculty, as teachers, as educational practitioners, leaders, by the nature of the work. So if the nature of the work for us is to teach, is to enhance learning, so if we all bring in our energies together to enhance learning, or to enhance the nature of whatever duty is given to us, I think the result of the change would be very different, and in my personal opinion, much more beautiful and much more fruitful. So I will end with giving one short example about why we need to be a bit wary about, you know, policy, not policy, but reform in general. So let's just say that there is a school in XYZ city where teacher absenteeism is a very big issue. Like, the teachers don't come to class. It's also a very general complaint that all, newspapers post, blogs post, that there's a lot of teacher absenteeism in India. So then so a leader comes with the idea that, okay, let us incentivize teachers. So let us incentivize those teachers who bring in results, right? Like, so basically saying that whichever class has a higher result, or whichever the students of whatever class get the highest result collectively, those teachers get incentivized. So the idea behind is that the teacher will come to class and teach the students to, get whatever incentive she was promised. So, and then we see that this works. Like, the second this incentivization came in, the teacher marks started to begin. But does this mean that there's a fundamental change? Like, one may think yes, but the answer is no, because the leader doesn't know that if the teacher has come to class for the purpose of teaching, or has she just taught for the purpose of examination for the incentive, right? So these are, small social concerns that we have to see. So it is not just necessary to to put an objective. Okay, so good leadership is not, okay, miss, mr, whoever, you get high marks, I give you an incentive. No, good leadership is to ensure that the teacher or the faculty or whoever it is, whoever the leader is, make sure that the nature of work is realized, not just the objectives. So there's an odd 10 minutes left, and I am open to questions. Else, we could move forward with the presentation. These are a couple of references that I had referred to. These are all very recent educational people who write on the discourse of educational leadership, not just leadership. Very interesting reads because it's all very new. I mean, 2008 for, still in the past 2 decades, and they have written very interesting things. It's very interesting because they had the foresightedness. So they had written these things in, say, 2008, 4 and 11, and now with our increasing our hurried advancement towards, private enterprises endeavors, these things are what we need today as faculty or people working in public systems, private systems, either way. Now, I mean, the distinction is no more. Like everything is amalgamated. It's all about who does the best. As I had mentioned here, these are the words that are repeatedly that come everywhere. So you need to be best, you need to be outstanding, you need to cater to international standards, you need to be efficient, you need to be accountable, there should be standard based. So we may like it personally, we may not like it, but this is the norm of the day. And this is, so we must, so as practitioners, as responsible education practitioners, it is our duty to keep up with the changing times. And again, I repeat, the most important is to keep the learner in mind. Like, without keeping the process of learning and learner in mind, we are going nowhere. So yeah, thank you. And I'm open to questions, or we could do it after the entire presentation. Thank you, sir. I'm done.
Thank you, Lovina, for the nice presentation. And I really appreciate your energy and initiatives to look into this, the change management in the education sector. Because one thing I noticed that, so we are expecting a lot from the new generations. For the senior leaders into the education sector, they need a proper feedback from the youngsters, what they are exactly expecting from us, that then only we can do something for the new generation. And I really appreciate, because you are a research scholar, and it is my request to the participants that you may ask the questions to the panelists through YouTube live chat, and we'll discuss on that questions at the end of the session.
Right.
So now may I request Father Dr. Benny Jos Parati to proceed with his session. Father Benny Jos.
Good morning to IIMT fraternity. Dean, Dr. Prafula Rajan, also Dr. Saju. It's nice to be here because always faculty enrichment program is not something I need to talk to somebody else, but it's an introspection. So basically, this topic, revamp education for the stakeholders, I have prepared it to make myself in a way revamped for the educational leadership during this time of very rigorous change. So let me just give my reflections on it. Change management is a well-known concept. Potter's approach has defined its boundaries and characteristics. I know you should be familiar with 8-step change management process, which has been introduced by Kotter. Its characteristics and steps are known. I'm not talking about those, but I'm going to reflect its relevance in the education sector. Why do we think change management now? Change is always necessary for growth. It's the duty of the leader to think of change and bring change for organizational transformation and leading it to new heights. In today's experience, current COVID scenario is thrilling us to think of change management. It's not a gap or vacation. It's time of expeditious involvement, planning, and learning. We have now a unique challenge and experience understanding the changes happening now. We need to think of the educational change management. Based on that, we need to think how to bring about organizational change that can modify the educational scenario. It's not just the administration of an institution, but it is thinking about the core concerns of education. There are many change drivers in the field. Now we know online education, current educational needs, health and travel crisis, changes in the evaluation patterns, school education, and the very practical challenges, social life of students, admission criteria, classroom teaching, relevance of physical campus, all these things are bringing, in a way, disturbing challenges in front of us. As we think of the change management in education sector, we have different areas, as I have mentioned, to think and study. Indian education sector and its rigidity is well known. It's not flexible, not ready to adapt and evolve for the changes. As we have Indian institutes of management and even IITs are providing certain management visions in the changing educational scenario. I have been participating IIT Delhi's Edu Carnival. There is an Edu Excellence platform to think, research, and train the school stakeholders. The school is not just the elementary, secondary level, but the complete education sector. There are varied aspects in the educational world. Our admission criteria looks into only academics and marks, but overseas educational institutions look extracurricular areas, essays, provide standardized tests. We also need to have change in the selection process. We are aware about the gaps between the classrooms and industry. The current crisis has increased the digital divide, and our politicians are not focusing to have inclusive infrastructural additions, but they are after statues, temples, and groups. It negates the right to education of significant majority of Indian youth and children. In today's world, the nature and quality of learning also have been challenged by the shutdown and physical distancing from classroom and organizational setting. Government policies and rules control and manage the expansion and modification. We have a state-controlled education system. All our MBA and PGDM programs are accredited to AICTE or UGC. That means a lot in the educational management regarding so-called control. In this context, being a leader in the education sector to change is a tough task. In the latest draft of education policy, it dreams about bringing a new category of leaders to think, plan, and execute in the education sector. It's brought under civil service, public servant. It prepares a path towards developing professional merits who can plan, manage the educational institutions. We already have a National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration where professionals are prepared to answer to the changing socio-political scenario of the nation through the educational institutions and to prepare efficient leaders for responding through educational products to the necessities of the industry. There are different courses available on educational planning, management, and administration. How to manage education during this period and in the post-COVID time. Is it only about admission, administration? No, it's more than that. The basic focus should be on educational process and classroom participants. As Ms. Levina also pointed out, ultimately and basically, we can never miss the learning and the learner. This unparalleled time forces everyone to think and act. In the educational scenario, the thinking, planning, and action should focus on the core issues and the stakeholders. It is the participants that make education effective. The revamping has to start not from the discussion groups and drawing rooms, but from classrooms. There are various effective models for the same. Let's think together to develop personally, not just one model for everyone, but personally we need to answer to the current situations of change and develop models that are applicable for our educational institution. We are in a faculty development program that is pertaining to educators. It's all about effectiveness and motivation on teaching. As this COVID-19 pandemic, our ongoing professional learning should focus on the students and the possible learning pursuits and support for this self-directed development. The focus of faculty development program at Indian Institute of Management Indore is set as participant-centric pedagogies and teaching method. That is the main focus the IIMI Indore has suggested. So participant-centric pedagogies and teaching methods. Here at this point of time, we should be clear about the focus of our professional development. We should plan our teaching. We should be clear about the ways to connect effectively with the students and help them to connect with the context of their learning. Also, we should be directing the students to solve the emerging issues from and society. This way, the concerns of COVID should be a rejuvenating platform for better learning. The title of this paper is about revamp and stakeholders. Revamp is a managerial reshaping. It is to change or arrange something again in order to improve it. The change management has to revamp for the improvement of the academic involvement. This is not just for the faculty, but for all the stakeholders. I am addressing some of the concrete concerns. There are students flying, so-called brain drain happening in a serious manner from our country. Why it happens? What is the solution? So it is not just during this COVID, but it is affecting our Indian educational scenario always. In the recent time, it's very high. Here, change management has to plan the future. There is a necessity for the education system to change. We need to redefine classroom, courses, educational freedom, classroom industry relationship, etc. We need to think of 2022, 2020, or even 2021 classrooms. What would be the nature of learning, teaching, interactions, skills trained in our classrooms? From the side of the students, this year should not be a gap year. It should be a year of change, a life-changing year. We, the faculty, has to facilitate it for the same. We need to bring and try with different models. Digital is part of life, and education, it is there always in our education now. Only through in a way, online that everything happens. So integration of these online systems properly, even some of the Western styles, and how can we substitute our physical classrooms, maintaining the academic cognitive interactions, as we need to have a hybrid model with creativity, talent, and sharing happening, where individual person is growing aligned to the necessities of the society and industry. Current shutdown can't but be temporary, but we need to see the challenges and address them as leaders. We need to build a proper mindset to address the changes. We need to, in a way, catch and hatch the students of India in our own institutions. We need to catch, breed, and rear the ideas from early stages of growth. At this current situation, it's a right time to catch, to get the ideas, and even to, in a way, breeding them, connecting to the context, the changing scenario. So it's a right time for that. So we need to look into the models of distinguished and learning institutes. Let's look at the most influential and leading American business school, Wharton, and its classrooms. They are focused on teaching and learning for the 21st century. They call it as engage in the classroom, apply everywhere. That is the title they have given Wharton Business School. Engage in the classroom, apply everywhere. It is very much right at this right moment. With the recent reshaping of Wharton's undergraduate and MBA curricula, they updated what they teach. Now, with a set of teaching excellence initiative, they are emphasizing how they teach. So there is a shift from what to how. No, it is not just ignoring the what aspect, but they are just improving with focusing on how. Their goal is to ensure that Wharton continues to define best practices in the dissemination of knowledge to their students. They believe two factors define teaching excellence: vibrant engagement between faculty and students in the classroom, and clear application of the knowledge learned to pressing challenges and opportunities beyond the classroom. So that is what is happening in and around during this so-called shutdown period. Through their focus and commitment to the principle of engage and apply, Wharton is creating a transformative educational experience for all their students. Also, the Master of Scientific Management, Frederick Winslow Taylor, stating the basic principles of scientific management, he confirmed managers should apply scientific management principles to planning the work, and the workers actually perform the task. The same scientific vigor and systems should be implemented to study the situation. In these current situations, organizations, and it is to be implemented in the teaching learning platforms. Now we don't have the so-called the previous normal available, because that may not be the normal for tomorrow. So we need to implement this scientific vigor into our classroom teaching learning process. During this time of crisis, it is good for us to study the new, the way Harvard Business School is working with their case method. You should be familiar with this. Harvard Business School is ranked the first in the world by the Financial Times. The business school pioneered the development of the case method of teaching, drawing inspiration from this approach to legal education at Harvard. Cases are typically descriptions of the real events. Okay, it can be in the organizations. Now, I think it has to come from the so-called ground realities. Even from the people, they're setting their community. Students are positioned as managers and are presented with problems which they need to analyze and provide recommendations. Now, students with the help of faculty should find the real events from the organizations and the lives of people and analyze them for their academic benefits. In this process of change management, there are some other areas to be looked upon. When we plan as leaders in the education sector, we should identify the participants and their needs. There are parents who are active in finding out the future of children. Children are also active from early age. They look into the future and prepare their destiny. Students immediately after their boards, that is also a very crucial time, try to get into their professional learning. Government and organizations also look for talented masters who can execute the vision and lead the organization, also the generation further. Children family, and society are ultimately the stakeholders. We should cater to the needs of all these categories. I also have just prepared a model. Okay, no, not just a permanent or can be applicable for everyone, for every situation. Everyone has to create a model, a working model for myself, for oneself, to implement in my own classroom, in my own so-called execution of teaching. This model, which speaks about the important steps to be followed while working in education, can change management perspectives. Building and managing a good institution at the time of COVID shutdown. How can that happen? It is not the time. It is not the time to shut down our minds. It is the time to be more active, searching the relevance of managers, leaders, and executing the vision. What is the present scenario? It is truly a crisis management. How will I move? Yes, I personally, everyone has to develop a model. In this model, we need to be knowing the surrounding, because this point of time and this particular experience, we can't get it from the so-called books and journals. It is okay, we get reports, media room feeding us, but that's not sufficient. We need to directly enter into the surroundings, the ground realities, collect the data, analyze what is the way things are moving. It should be a serious venture into the ground realities. It should be a scientific movement. Then we need to have right judgment. I am sure we need to work together with our human capacities, also with the divine wisdom, to have right judgment. Then know the core issues and concerns of education. Also, my own classroom, as so-called action researchers, we should start from the core issues than the popular concerns. The approach by dealing with the core issues will help us to be valuable and positively contributing managers who are essentially helping the human and the nation to grow. Next, resource management is a key concern. So, know the availability and ensure the quality of the resources that I need. The resource, it is not just human alone. Okay, it is technical. Even quality of students, government systems and supports, all those are part of so-called resources. Then we need to just point out to come to the exact necessities, identify the current necessities, changed behaviors, and the practical solutions. So this model, knowing the surroundings, having the right judgment, just learning or focusing onto the core issues, then resource management, then coming to the identification of the current necessities, changed behavior, and practical solutions. Based on these, we need to plan the exact practices, so-called the products, course, and identify the team to work, prepare and execute. Okay, even there, we need to plan the preparation and execution stages. It is finding relevance and caching the crisis. So it is that way we need to work. We all know the crisis boosts innovation. This innovation should be leading to practical programs. So we need to cache from the crisis. So I have been focusing on various aspects of education and educational processes for the classroom, teaching and learning. Also, I have looked at the visions by which great business schools emerged and their educational working styles. At this time, there is no physical setup. As a result, students may miss the focus into the areas of their future contribution. So I have tried to connect to the context and challenges of the work field. Also try to present a working model which would help the listeners to systematically approach the change management in the education sector. In the constantly changing world, the one who welcomes the changes stays ahead of the competition. So all the very best. Let the faculty be enriched to be ahead of competition and to the learning system. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Dr. Benny Jos Palati, for the nice presentation. Education sector that you are expecting from the educational leaders, because you are at the receiving end, right? Still you are a
Right.
research scholar.
Right.
So you have certain expectation from the educational leaders. So what are the things? Could you please elaborate?
So the answer would be a blend of both. As a student of education, as to doing the things what is right, and also as, like, a student just in general. Because so being, a student, a part of a student community in a university, which is very, very, I mean, the student body in the university that I went to is a very active student body. Like, they have never apprehended from voicing their opinions, and because that is the way the university works. Like, it's a very give and take sort of a relationship where the faculties always listen to us. So I think I'll be speaking for most of them, saying that what we would expect from our educational leaders, practitioners, teachers, either way, is to be a bit more understanding as to our social context also. I mean, but that said, I also understand that the faculty also has some mores and guidelines to follow. So what I would expect the faculty to do is to understand, to mitigate, to talk to us and understand what the individual problems are. And of course, it is very difficult to cater to each and every individual problem, but to sit with the students, collaborate, and bring out a solution. uh, in that sense, it is definitely not an easy task, but I don't think it is set in stone. You can definitely do it. And another thing that I would expect from the faculty, not just in the post COVID time, but especially in this post COVID time, is to remove that distinction, between, I mean, of course the faculty has a certain place in the hierarchy, but just to let go of that and collaborate with the students in issues, concerns that provide any all of us. But other than that, more than what I expect from the faculty, as a student I have a concern, is that post COVID, like, so we saw the results came out, the CBSE results came out, and a lot of universities are declaring results based on previous engagement with assignments, internals, or whatever. So I think this also brings out, I mean, I think this will bring out, or it already might have, like, our obsession with test scores. Like, and I think it will show the bad side of it, because say till 6 months back the students didn't know such a situation, such a circumstance would come. So so the question is, would a teacher mark a student or mark the learner on the basis of their reciprocity of perspective? Because see, every classroom has a dynamic, and I think it'll be very idle to say that teachers see all students as the same. All teachers have different perspectives, different emotions, different attitudes towards different children, based on whatever their personal relationships are. So I think what I expect from the teachers, faculty, and other leaders is to set aside those biases, set aside the reciprocity in perspective, and see all learners, all children, all students as the same, and try to rebuild the relationship, like like a new start. Like, I mean, a simple thing like marking a student on the basis of previous engagement, I personally find was very problematic, because because it has so many other factors to it. So one of the major reasons why people say examinations are important or tests are important is because of the unbiased percept around it. So when a student or learner is marked on previous engagement in the classroom, and other things like interaction with the teacher or other things, like then I expect the faculty and the teachers to, to refurbish their previous, to unlearn. There's nothing wrong in unlearning, and unlearn and relearn how to connect with students, support their students for sure, because COVID has also brought in a lot of issues for students with respect to, space, time, technology, and it's also very gendered. If you get into that, like, the way a female student can approach online classes is very different from how a male student does. Like beyond a certain age, some people have responsibilities, household responsibilities, and so on and so forth. So I think that the faculty, what I expect them is to be more understanding, be more contingent, as I also mentioned in my presentation, and develop an emotional quotient with students. Many may say it is not applicable, it is not practical, but I think that is the right way to go about it.
Thank you, Lavina, for the very good answer to the question. Okay, the next question is to Father Dr. Benijos Palati. So we have discussed a lot on the classroom sessions. See, nowadays, the virtual classroom is there, the online classroom. The physical classroom it is not there, that's not happening. And do you think this kind of virtual classroom or the online classroom will help the students in their learning process? Because many of the students, they are not in a position to join the classroom due to the technical glitches, and of course, due to the lack of infrastructure across the country. So in your opinion, what are the advantages and at the same time, the disadvantages of conducting these online classrooms?
It's very practical and necessary to think about this online digital divide. Also, I need to then primarily start with government initiatives, because improving so-called online infrastructure, that has to be an important concern of the government, because we all have experienced the importance of it. Okay, that way, so there is no other way other than improving this infrastructure for online facilities. So that is the way the effectiveness of online classroom can be brought or highlighted. Or when we come to higher education, online is not a new thing, because for school maybe online to a certain extent it is a new thing, but for higher education online was it was very practical. But now even from the centers of education, that means from the institutes, the students have just distributed to their own places, localities, interior places. So there is a trouble for the effectiveness. And there are even from some of the government colleges, strikes are happening even against the UGC policy to conduct exams. There is already in Supreme Court, 31 students have already filed a case. It's in a way against the so-called online platform exams and facilities. Okay, they are all just surrounding some basic policies from the side of government, and also what is happening around. Okay, those who are inside, those who are utilizing this online, I find if it is available, it's a very good platform. And especially, I'm not just talking about the so-called school students, but about the higher education participants, students. For them, it's a platform to connect. What we need to do is how to improve that connectivity, because there are a number of opportunities where we can discuss dialogue, so that academic cognitive representations, connections, presentation of ideas, discussion. It can simply happen. It can simply happen in the online platform. So it is not, I don't know how our higher education classrooms are executing so-called teaching. It is with the so-called power and authority, a monologue execution of teaching, and that may not work. That if the same is continued or copied in online platform, nothing will change. But if so-called the faculty is ready to incorporate or being democratic within the classroom, because even in the online platform, the teacher and a student, it is only simple, the value of an ID. I just caught in the jail. Everyone is numbered. Everyone is having one or other number. In the same way, online platform, teacher and student, there is no higher desk or seat for the teacher. The teacher also has to be so-called democratically equal to every. Okay. It's correct. I got some other call. That is why I have been muted. Just suggesting, as we develop models, we need to bring it into the classroom practicals and incorporate more activities and add the strength of students, make them more primarily improve the infrastructure. That is very important. It has to start from the government. Also, to what extent our institute can do it, that we need to do to incorporate every student to be part of this online. So if we put some aside, and then nothing will happen, because that is very dangerous for the quality and development of the nation. Okay.
Father, what is your suggestion to the existing faculties, because they are not used to this new technology? So how you suggest them to improve and how to adapt to the new situation?
Technically being so sophisticated is not the matter. I don't know how far I can share my own experience. I was not that tech savvy just before the COVID. I just speak just before the COVID, but within these 3 months, I have developed, and I have in a way YouTube channel which has more than thousands of subscribers, and I weekly give different educational inputs, and there are it is already 30,000 viewers within these 3 months. You see, so every faculty can get some area, not everything of the so-called technical world. There are n number of platforms, and the thing is, we can share everything, follow students, even time can be managed being within the home. So there are n number of opportunities. At least try. I mean, that way it is all possible. It is all possible. Not being so-called the gigantic, controlling everything, but at least something. Start with. It is simply possible.
Correct. It is a relearning sort of thing.
Sure. Because I was able, because I myself tried YouTube channel, then through Facebook, I have conducted 3 or 4 webinars. I have given similar faculty enrichment programs to different schools, teachers, so-called primary school teachers, also college, and conducted 4 or 5 seminars, and I have already initiated series of programs. So already that is already scheduled. You see, these are all possible. These are all possible. That is the so-called viability and approachability that has brought in through this online.
I agree with you, Father, because it is all menu driven. Only we have to get into it and learn. It's not that difficult. Only we have to get into it.
Sure.
Yes, over to Dr. Sir.
Yeah.
Okay, Lavina, there is another question to you.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So there's a comment from one Mr. Anil Kumar Srivastava. So he's telling we need to have a comprehensive method through which we can find out the aptitude of students so that they can choose the best vocation in life. Okay. So the question is, nowadays, due to the peer pressure or the pressure from the parents, the students, they are opting their field. It does not mean that, okay, it is due to the, based on the aptitude, because they are not following any scientific way to find out what exactly their aptitude and which career that they need to opt. And I heard that certain countries, they are taking the initiative in such a way that they will decide, the country will decide the career of each and every people in that country based on their aptitude. At the same time, the requirement, that's very much important, because 100 out of 100 is choosing the profession of medicine, then they will be in trouble. The similar way for engineering or law or whatever it is, there should be a proper that equal, or everything should be depends on the requirement. So that means we need to focus on the requirement in that particular country, at the same time the aptitude of the students too. So since you are representing the young generation, do you think it should be the right of the student to opt their career even though they don't have the right aptitude, or we should give this chance to the country to take a decision by deciding the aptitude of the student as well as the requirement in that particular country? Yes.
Right. This is a very interesting question. Something I've also engaged with in my, my thesis in the master's level. Of course, I haven't gone into detail of it, but this is something that it is what I hope to pursue in my PhD. So while you were telling me the question, like I just put down 4 things that came into my head. Okay, like a brainstorming thing. So when we speak about jobs, or when we speak about what the student can do, about aptitude specifically, uh, so I'll start the same way you started. So something like an aptitude, uh, to comment that students don't take, a career or further studies based on the aptitude is, I mean, it's not problematic, but because, so what are the provisions for that? So you look at a schooling system at least till now, like till 12th grade. So everybody studies the same thing, right? So I think it is very, I think it's futile to say, okay, till 12th we all study a homogenized syllabus, the same standard syllabus, and by 12th you require the student to go for your aptitude. It is impossible for the student to do it. Like, how would the student do it? So without previous training, in or previous training in vocations, or previous orientation, like in primary classes itself, if the schools, if the system, charts out a program, a course, or anything for students to be with themselves, self reflect, only then can a person, by the time he or she graduates 12th grade, can find what the aptitude is, or even know what their aptitude is. In most of our cases, like, I've been a student of class 12th. All of us, we all know students who are in class 12th, 10th. Like, you ask them what they want to do, they're quite clueless. And it is very wrong to blame or put the onus of this on the child, saying that, Are, this person doesn't know, this person is not thinking of the future. It is not the responsibility of the student, it is the responsibility of the system to provide a provision, or to envision a provision, so that the student can at least start thinking about themselves. There are a lot of countries, in fact, there is Japan, there is Finland, where China also in some parts, where from a very young age during the schooling, vocational training is started, or at least orientation is given as to what you can do. So the 4 things I wrote that came into my mind was job hierarchy, the needs of the country, as you very rightly mentioned, aptitude and choice, and job availability. So a student chooses the career based on these 4 things. Like, there's always the question of job hierarchy. Everybody wants a respectable job. Nobody wants to do a menial job. I mean, this is specifically true in in developing nations like ours, where the status attached to, it's a system deluged with a hierarchy of job profiles. Then there is the thing about the needs of the economy. That is the primary thing going on. So you have companies like McKinsey, Deloitte, Like they're every year they release their reports on the widening distance between the graduates and the market. Like, you have hundreds and hundreds of graduates every year, but they're not equipped to work for the market. So, and it's a cyclic thing. So, again, just providing education institutions or teachers or students with the resources to realize their aptitudes is not enough. It is the need of the country to also provide jobs. So, we can have this set up in a school where we say, okay, from today, okay, if you like wood carving, you do that, or if you like any motor activity, you do that. But if the country is not providing jobs for it, then of course, the student comes in a dilemma. Like, there is a passion for wood carving or there's a passion for pottery, but there are no jobs. So, it can never work in a vacuum. It can, so instead, that's, you need interconnectedness. So if education institutes are, work programs about vocational education or skill development, there should be a complementary industry for it. That is the need. And these are macro changes. These are not, structural changes which need a lot of thinking, a lot of planning ahead. And about aptitude and choice also, as I mentioned in the beginning, like, to know what your aptitude is, you need training. Like, let's just say if tomorrow you can't just, make students sit in a classroom tomorrow saying, okay, this is your aptitude test. Aptitudes and choices and things, like, they come from your historical context, your social context. You need to think about those things. Like, it cannot be jotted down in one single MCQ test. Okay, ABCD, you choose one and we tell you what your aptitude is. These things require a lot of reflection. I mean, a lot of you need to be with yourself to know it. And especially in today's time when everyone's just so fast paced and everybody wants to do, like, multiple things. They want to multitask is the buzzword these days. So, in a time like that, like, you also have to make space for yourself. The school system has to make a space where the child is given the freedom, the child is given the opportunity to explore himself or herself. And as I said, that is can be should be complemented with creating jobs. That is what, the economy can do. Now, about how to go about it, I'm not an economist, so I don't have, clear cut bullet points for that. But at least with respect to, to just put the onus of this on the student, that, the student doesn't know what to do, or, I mean, that is not right. Because, see, a student is one part of the system. Then you have teachers, then you have the school, then you have the education in ministry, then you have so many, like, so, we cannot work in islands. Like, working in islands can never do any good. Like, the student needs to know what the teacher is doing, the teacher needs to know what the the bigger ministry or whatever is doing. So everybody needs to know, and this can only happen if things work in collaboration. Like, so collaboration is needed. Only then can you realize aptitudes, and once you realize aptitudes, only then can you generate a certain kind of jobs, or, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I hope I've been able to answer the question. If not, I'm ready to enumerate on it better.
Yes, Lavina, it was a wonderful answer. And the most important thing is, okay, so from the receiving end, that you answered the questions in such a way. Okay, Reverend Father Benny Parati is with us, and he is heading the educational institutions of the Delhi Faridabad Diocese. So we can consider him as one of the leader into the education sector.
Mhm.
Sir, Father, what is your opinion about the same question that I asked to Lavina?
Okay. No, anyway, there are very serious dangers even in the in this kind of thoughts, because providing everything to the hands of the government, that is very much critical. But okay, government has certain responsibilities without compromising individual freedom. Because government should, as Lavina was telling, government, no, even just forcing into certain areas and even providing these standardized tests at the school level, there are certain challenges, but they have to be resolved. Now I have even in my presentation in the beginning, I was just addressing the same thing, because this is a lacuna of our education system. This admission process. How do we admit, especially in India? Our so-called very rigid pattern looks only for the academics and marks for the admission. But when it goes to outside, in many of the places, countries, we find there are some standardized tests. It is same. This aptitude, skills, and interests are analyzed. And there, what we need to find, we need to be clear about the role of the government, and also what the child has to do. If government directs, facilitates, what is the role of the child? These two things should be clear. Government should never force, but government should provide. If not government, even every institute should start. I am also, as you are telling, I am heading different institutes. We are also just planning to develop varied programs from the class of 8. So children are being introduced about core areas. It is not every area, because that is needless. Core areas, and whether children have that skills, aptitude, interest, that is being analyzed. And it is not by forced, but children are directed. Okay, you seem to have these skills, so it is good for you to attempt. And there is a little other conflict, as Levina was telling. There is historical context also is influencing the child to understand his aptitude, or even to develop attitude. That is correct. The socio-historical background, so-called the cultural capital by Bodio, is very much important here. Still, in every person's nature, so-called inbuilt nature, there are certain manifestations. There are certain characteristics. It is not to be measured. No, it is not to measure and compare. No, that is not the objective of these kind of standardized tests. But it is to identify those areas. That has to be done. In order to, as a part of education, that is one of the primary objectives of education: identifying the skill, interest, and aptitude of the child by reaching so-called senior secondary or senior secondary is a must. That is an objective of education. So that has to be done, and we are charting some plans to conduct it from 8th class. And government has to initiate, facilitate, direct, but never force, or you need to study. No, it is not forcing to have some courses or some profession, but directing students, facilitating to identify the skill set, aptitude, and interest, and directing students. Only that much is permissible from an external person or source or a power. It can't impose to an individual, because it is against the dignity of the right of the individual. Okay.
I would also like to just add something, because Father very well articulated, and this actually helped me frame what I was, like, the core argument that I was wanted to make was, like, as Father said, autonomy. Like, it is so important, not just for one individual, not just for one sector of education, not just for one part, everyone. So autonomy. So the second you get autonomy, you also feel responsible, and you do things. And coming, a very small example that quickly came to my mind, so I wanted to share was, so, we always think, so you see a lot of these progressive schools, progressive organizations, they say think differently, do differently, or we are, learn differently. Policy documents say learning in a new way. That's all great. But then when you learn in a new way, are we thinking about assessment in a new way? So no, you can't just have this idea that learning should be done in a new way. Right now, if you're learning by writing, tomorrow you learn by singing, that's very great. But then the assessment pattern or the assessment method should also change. Like, you cannot have, you cannot assess everybody the same way. So, if you're planning, so that's how, you cannot work in islands. If you change something here, something also has to be changed at the end game. Only then can, the expected results come out. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavina Joy and Father Dr. Benny Jos Palati for the wonderful presentation. And I am considering it as a brilliant, very informative and interactive session. And it was very much useful for all the participants, because all the participants from the education sector, and we have discussed a lot on the real point that is related to the education and the changes in the education. So once again, I'm congratulating the panel members, especially Lavina Joy. You are a young research scholar and you have a very good, bright future. Definitely, you'll have a very bright future. And still, you are showing the wisdom with you. The great knowledge that you shared, even though you are very young. And Father Dr. Benny Jos Palati, he has just completed his PhD program. So I want to congratulate you for that thing also. And one thing I noticed, you are taking a lot of initiative to make changes in the education sector. Anyway, now you are holding a very good position. You are the director of education institutions under the Delhi Faridabad Diocese. And of course, you have brilliant ideas. And I hope you will implement all these things in the near future, and that will be beneficial to the entire people in this area, at least in the Delhi NCR area. I wish you all the best. And once again, thanks to both the panelists, Father Benny as well as Lavina Joy. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll end the program, and tomorrow 11:30 we'll meet again. So till then, all the participants, good day.